So the first question is, what is your product? What kind of products do you have? Because you have to think about music as a business. You have to think of what is your product? Who's going to buy your product? And so you start looking at around when you go to concerts, say it's a certain type of music that you like. Look around, get familiar with who's in your audience, get to know the faces, take a little time. This is where you start marketing your product. First, for most of us, it's face-to-face stuff. You get out there in your own neighborhood and start getting around, getting to know people, letting them know who you are and what you do and what your product is. Make it, then you need to manage it. If you sell it, then you need to market it. So there's two sides of the product. You're either making music or you're selling music, or possibly both. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind as you're looking at the aspect. Well, is this marketing? Is this management? How do I handle this? What do I do with this? Because when you have to get to be the person who gets to go out and book the band, promote the band, market the band in some way, market your product, say you get a CD cut. What do you do after you get the CD cut? How are you going to get it in the hands of people who A, can hire you, or B, can do something with your stuff in commercials, a little bit of air, it's two sides of it. If you make it, you've got to manage it. If you sell it, you've got to market it. Just keep those two things in mind as you're thinking. So let's start going through some of the points that I got here about management. One of the first things I listed was production. You got to make the product. Have you put together some type of a plan? I'll tell you what, it really helps when you have some type of a rough outline, even if it's just something on a dry erase board or something on paper that everybody can look at, so that you can start communicating across the band. What are we here doing? What is it that we're going to make? What do we hope to have when we finish? Just those simple communication things, and just at least a basic plan, because you can always add stuff to it and take it away later. There always seems to be somebody in the group that's good about bringing paper and pen, is good about keeping things organized. There's always somebody in every group, so that person usually can be described, write it all down for you. You need to have some type of a plan of what is it that we're making, and ultimately what are we going to do with it. So that when you're making that plan and you're looking at the management side of the production of it, what are your customer needs? Do you guys know who your customer is? Do you know if you're playing music, let's say you're on stage at a venue in town, do you know who your customers are? I mean, does anybody know any of their customers? How about you? No? That's the first thing that you got to know, because how can you make a product for a customer? In this case, it's music, right? It's a show. It's an experience. It's something where they want to walk away. How many times you walk away from a concert? Oh man, what a great show. Wasn't it awesome? You see the way this guy did this or this girl did that, right? Well, get to know who your customers are, what it is that they expect to have when they come to that show, to your show, so that you can anticipate that. One of the coolest things I saw with my group when I was coaching was a little bit of attitude on the stage presence. We were in the practice place, just in the practice place. But Jesse down here, he's our guitar player for the group. And man, he's all into it. His head's going, his legs out, and I'm going, wow, that's great. That's a little 12-year-old. Well, that's what people expect to see when you're on that stage. They expect to see some energy. They came to be entertained. And that's your job as musicians, as entertainers, to entertain. I'm sure if you've got drumsticks, you're totally into it, you're totally feeling it all the time. And to have the opportunity to express that to people and share that, that's huge. And if you know what kind of stuff they would like to see, what kind of stuff maybe that you do that they've never seen before. Maybe you've got a customer need that you can fulfill with your show or your songs that they've never experienced before. That'd be a great thing if you come up with that, because that's a winning combination. And ask, I listed next, consult your end users. Ask the people who are in your audience, what do you like to see? Just ask them casually, ask them to go to the flipboard and everything. You just ask as you're around school, you ask the other kids, hey, who's your favorite band? What do you like? I'm constantly asking my guys that. And the great thing about it now, each one of them knows who the favorite artist is of that individual. And they become familiar with some of the things about it. So they know each other's needs. That helps inside of the business, but as far as your customers go, find that out. Next thing in management listing is build a product. Another thing I like to do is I like to test my product. When I get the chance to turn somebody on to something that we've written and recorded, I'll say, hey, listen to this and tell me what you think. I go to industry pros that work in the area. We've got program managers at radio stations, TV producers, people who write movie scripts. You know, I go to them and I say, hey, what do you hear? What kind of things do you hear? What do you dislike? You don't like just get your ego stroked and walk away and go, yeah, I'm great, I write great songs here. It does my guitar thing, it does my drum fill or keyboard, whatever. You know, it's not just, we're constantly improving the product, and then the product is a song. So you test out that way. And then you take those suggestions they give you, you go back and start putting them to work. You know, you're the ultimate creator of your song. It's your song. You can determine if this is something that needs to be improved or I think it's pretty good overall. The 20 people that I asked, and notes back to the things I remember they said. I think it's all right. Or it might, you have 5 people say the same thing about your song. Well, I really don't like this part. You might go change what it's about. Infomercials, marketing, advertising, about educating you about what their product is. So if you're a marketing person for your group, you're going to have to, or even if you're just one of the people in the band, you're going to have to educate people about what your product is so that they know what your product is. So that you're not just some other faceless band in the crowd, some other name. You'll start, that's what helps to start bringing you to the top of the pile in your local arena. So you get control of the local area that you are in first. So that when someone says, hey, who's that rock band from Reno? And hopefully the name of your group or you as a player or as a writer will come up right away. So that they'll go, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. Well, how does that happen? You've got to educate people about who you are and what you do. How many different sources do you have to do that with? Well, first off, you've got to know who you are as a band or as a musician and what your product is. What it is that you have to offer. We talked about customer needs. Now you've got your product. How well do you know your product? When somebody says to you, who's in the group? Show me who's in the group. Raise your hand. You've got a group, even if it's a 7-state group. Okay. How many songs do you have?
We're working on
2 songs. Okay. What's the title of your songs? Okay. He's saying one of the songs is about MySpace. So now just that little bit of conversation that we had, I know a little bit more about your group. But the trick is customers aren't going to come up and ask you. You've got to go out and let them know who you are and what you're doing. And you don't want to just go up and start talking to anybody. Some people be like, whatever, shut up, you know. So you've got to know who wants your products and who may want your products. I mean, again, it comes back down to knowing who your customer are. When you're in places where there's people like you who are checking out music, who are checking out play and shows and stuff, you know, go up and talk to them. Talk to them, get right in their face, you know, find out about who they are and what it is that they do. And when you start doing that, you'll start making contacts because once you've got a product, you've got to promote it. You've got to let people know who you are. You've got to find some ways. What's some of the, let me see, somebody tell me what's some of the best ways that you see for advertising. I can see advertising of 2 bands in this room. 3. What's on yours? That's fair. So we got a guy in a Bob Dylan shirt, right? Everybody know who Bob Dylan is?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody know who Iron Maiden is?
Yeah.
Who's this Dark Star? You don't even know who they are? You're just wearing their shirt. Anybody know who Dark Star is? Oh, it's a skate. No. Okay, that's marketing. What about this one? The Used? Is that a band? That is a band? Local guys or national guys? So do you guys know the difference between local and national? Yeah? Do you understand what it takes to get to a local level first, then to a national level? You know, simple little things like t-shirts. It helps, man. It helps get the word out about, you know, and if you'll see some people wearing shirts with products on it, they'll say what their company is and what they do. You know, effective marketing logos are so great when the product looks like the name. Next thing I've got on here for marketing is make a timeline. We were talking about a plan before. You got to make some kind of a timeline for yourself, some types of goals, because otherwise, if you don't have a plan, what's the old saying? No one plans to fail, they just fail to plan. Right? And so you drift along, and you drift along, and you drift along, and suddenly 10 years have gone by, and you're like, how come I'm not in a band yet? How come I'm not writing? How come I'm not in a show? You don't plan it. It doesn't work. And then there's co-marketing. I've got a couple of local sponsors. Ruby River is one of my local sponsors. Corral West, a house band for Country 945. We play country rock. And then I've got a national sponsor. I've got Coors Brewing. That's when you wanted to put on a great show, but you weren't sure that you guys could get the numbers. What kind of ideas do you have to help Put butts in the seats, as Whoopi Goldberg said in one of the movie Sister Act. Bring in another band. It's a great idea. So you can turn around to the guys behind you and go, dude, we're going to put on this little soiree. You know, we'll come out, we'll play. You guys can open for you because you're the guy planning it. Once you're the guy planning it, suddenly you can have everybody else helping raise you up. All boats together, and the rising waters lifts all boats together. You know, but if you start putting this thing together, go out and start talking to these other people.